My name is Olivia Parker. I'm 36 years old. For nearly 15 years, I worked 2 jobs. Days were spent as a registered nurse. Nights were spent taking online classes to earn promotions. Every extra dollar had one purpose: a home of my own. I skipped vacations. I drove the same old car for 11 years. I rarely bought new clothes. Friends asked why I worked so much. I always gave the same answer: one day I'll have a place where no one can take away my peace. Finally, that dream came true. A beautiful white house with a wraparound porch. Nothing extravagant. Just a warm, welcoming home that I had earned with my own hard work. It wasn't the biggest house on the street, but every brick reminded me of every sacrifice I'd made. My parents were proud. At least, that's what I believed. When I invited them over for dinner, my mother walked through every room smiling. "This house is beautiful, Olivia." My father nodded. "You've done well." Hearing those words meant everything to me. My younger brother, Ryan, came too. He was 32. Funny, charming, and completely irresponsible. Ryan had changed jobs more times than I could count. Every time life became difficult, my parents rescued him. When he couldn't pay rent, they paid it. When his truck was repossessed, Dad bought him another one. When his credit cards were maxed out, Mom quietly wrote another check. I never complained. I believed every family was different. Besides, I didn't need anyone to rescue me. I had built my life with my own hands. 6 months later, everything changed. My father called unexpectedly. "Olivia, we need to have a family meeting." His voice sounded serious. I drove to my parents' house that evening. Ryan was already there. So was my mother. The atmosphere felt strange. No one smiled. Dad cleared his throat. "Ryan's landlord is selling the apartment. He has nowhere to live." I looked at my brother. He shrugged as if it were just another inconvenience. Then my mother reached across the table and took my hand. "Honey, we've been talking. You have a good job. You can always buy another house someday. But Ryan needs one now." I frowned. "I don't understand." Dad looked me straight in the eyes. "We think you should let Ryan have your house." For a moment, I honestly thought it was a joke. I laughed. No one else did. The room was completely silent. "You can't be serious." Mom squeezed my hand. "Families make sacrifices." I slowly pulled my hand away. "I already made my sacrifice. I worked 15 years for that house." Ryan finally spoke. "It's only a house. You'll recover." Only a house? To him, maybe. To me, it was 15 years of missed birthdays, double shifts, and dreams. I stood up. "I'm not giving anyone my home." Dad's face hardened. "So you'd rather see your own brother homeless?" I answered calmly. "I'd rather see my brother take responsibility for his own life." Ryan slammed his hand on the table. "So now you're better than me?" "No, I simply made different choices." The argument lasted nearly an hour. Eventually, I walked out, heartbroken. As I drove home, I kept wondering how the people who taught me the value of hard work could suddenly expect me to give away everything I had earned. I had no idea that my family had already started making plans behind my back. I barely slept that night. My parents' words kept echoing in my mind. Families make sacrifices. I had sacrificed. For 15 years. The next morning, I drove to the hospital for another 12-hour shift. Normally, work helped me forget my problems. But not that day. Every patient I cared for reminded me why I had worked so hard. To build a life. To build a home. Not just a house. A place where I finally felt safe. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Olivia, can you stop by this afternoon? We need to finish our conversation." Her voice sounded unusually cheerful. Something didn't feel right. Still, I agreed. When I arrived, Ryan's car was already in the driveway. So was the car of a man wearing a business suit. The moment I walked inside, the man stood and smiled. "Miss Parker, I'm David Collins. I'm a real estate attorney." I frowned. "A lawyer?" Dad smiled confidently. "We found a simple solution." The lawyer placed several papers on the table. "If you agree to transfer ownership, everything can be completed today." For a few seconds, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They hadn't invited me to talk. They had invited me to sign away my own home. Ryan leaned back in his chair. "Come on, Olivia. You can always buy another one." I looked at him. "When was the last time you paid a mortgage?" He looked away. Mom spoke softly. Honey, this is for family. I took a deep breath. No. Dad's expression hardened. Think carefully. If you don't help your brother, don't expect us to help you in the future. I almost laughed. I've never asked you for help. I never needed it. The room fell silent. I stood up, pushed the papers back across the table, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, I turned around one last time. I love all of you, but I will never apologize for protecting something I earned honestly. Then I left. That evening, I arrived home feeling emotionally exhausted. As I pulled into the driveway, something immediately felt wrong. Ryan's truck was parked in front of my garage. Boxes were stacked on my porch. I hurried toward the front door. Ryan walked outside carrying another box. He smiled. Oh, you're home. What are you doing? He shrugged. Moving in. I stared at him. Excuse me? Mom walked out behind him. We assumed you'd eventually understand. My father added, families shouldn't fight over property. I looked at all three of them in complete disbelief. You moved into my house. Without asking me? Ryan crossed his arms. It's practically mine anyway. At that moment, I realized this wasn't just disrespect. It was unbelievable entitlement. I calmly reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and made one call. Hello, Mr. Harrison. It's Olivia Parker. I think it's time. The man on the other end replied immediately. I've been expecting your call. I'll see you tomorrow morning. I smiled. Thank you. I hung up. Ryan laughed. Calling a lawyer? It's too late. You've already lost. I simply looked at him. No. You've forgotten one very important detail. For the first time, Ryan's smile disappeared. He had no idea. That one document signed years earlier was about to change everything. The next morning, I arrived at the office of Harrison and Cole attorneys. Mr. Harrison had been my family's lawyer for more than 20 years. As soon as I walked in, he stood and shook my hand. I'm sorry it came to this, Olivia. I sat down. So, tell me the truth. Can they really take my house? Mr. Harrison smiled gently. No, they can't. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe again. But, he continued, they've forgotten something. He opened a thick file, removed a single document, and slid it across the desk. This. I looked at the paper. It was the original property agreement I had signed years ago. At first glance, it looked ordinary. Then he pointed to one paragraph. The land is protected by a lifetime ownership clause. I frowned. What does that mean? He smiled. It means no one, not even your family, can transfer, occupy, or claim this property without your written permission. They can move furniture in. They can dream about owning it. But legally, it will never belong to anyone else. A wave of relief washed over me. They really forgot that? Mr. Harrison nodded. Most people never read the fine print. Meanwhile, back at my house, Ryan was acting like he already owned the place. He hung family photos on the walls, ordered expensive furniture, even invited his friends over. This place is incredible. One of them asked, So Olivia just gave it to you? Ryan laughed. She didn't have much choice. Everyone laughed. None of them knew. The law was about to interrupt the party. Around noon, a black SUV pulled into the driveway. 2 legal officers stepped out. Behind them, Mr. Harrison. Ryan opened the door confidently. Can I help you? Mr. Harrison handed him an envelope. You've been officially served. Ryan frowned. What is this? A notice to vacate the property immediately. His smile disappeared. What? My parents rushed into the hallway. Dad looked confused. There must be some mistake. There isn't, Mr. Harrison calmly replied. Miss Olivia Parker is the sole legal owner of this property. No transfer has ever been approved. Your occupancy is unauthorized. Mom's face turned pale. But she's our daughter. Mr. Harrison nodded politely. And she's also the legal owner. At that exact moment, I stepped out of my car. The entire family turned toward me. Ryan stormed across the yard. You called lawyers on your own family? I answered quietly. No, you forced me to protect what I earned. Dad looked ashamed. We thought you'd eventually agree. I shook my head. You never asked. You decided. Mom began crying. We only wanted to help your brother. And you chose to hurt your daughter. Silence. No one had an answer. Ryan looked around desperately. Where am I supposed to go? I looked him straight in the eyes. The same place I would have gone if I had given you my home. For the first time, Ryan had no words. The confidence was gone. The laughter was gone. Reality had finally arrived. The driveway fell silent. Ryan stood there, holding the legal notice in his shaking hands. For the first time in his life, no one was coming to rescue him. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not anyone. He looked at me. You'd really do this to your own brother? I answered quietly. No, Ryan. You did this to yourself. I simply refused to let you take what wasn't yours. The legal officers gave Ryan 1 hour to gather his belongings. His friends quietly carried the furniture back to the moving truck. No one laughed anymore. The same neighbors who had watched him move in now watched him move out. My father lowered his head. I never thought it would end like this. I looked at him. It didn't have to. You could have asked me for help. But instead, you decided my hard work belonged to someone else. He had no answer. As Ryan loaded the last box into his truck, my mother slowly walked toward me. Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry, Olivia. We failed you? For years. We kept protecting Ryan. And we expected you to keep sacrificing. I took a deep breath. I never wanted to compete with my brother. I only wanted to be treated fairly. She nodded. I know. A week later, Dad called me. Would you have dinner with us? I hesitated, but finally agreed. When I arrived, something felt different. The dining table was quiet. No arguments. No excuses. Dad stood up. He looked older than I remembered. I owe you an apology. I spent years believing helping Ryan meant loving him. But all I really did was stop him from becoming responsible. Ryan looked down at his plate. Then he slowly stood. He walked over to me. I'm sorry. I was jealous. You earned everything. I wanted the rewards. Without making the sacrifices. I blamed you, instead of blaming myself. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I hugged him. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't erase responsibility. If you want a better life, you'll have to build it yourself. He nodded. I will. 6 months later, Ryan got his first full-time job. He rented a small apartment. It wasn't fancy, but every month, he paid the rent himself. One Saturday, he invited me over. I bought this dining table with my own paycheck. There was pride in his voice. Real pride. Not because someone had given him something, but because he had earned it. I smiled. Now you understand. The things we work for mean the most. That Christmas, our family gathered again. This time, there were no arguments about money, no talk about houses, no favoritism, just laughter, good food, and gratitude. Dad raised his glass. I spent too many years treating equality and fairness as the same thing. They're not. The greatest gift a parent can give isn't money. It's teaching every child to stand on their own. Everyone quietly nodded. As the evening came to an end, I stood on my front porch, looking at the home I had worked so hard to build. The house was never really the point. It represented something much bigger: self-respect, perseverance, and the courage to protect what you have honestly earned. Sometimes, the people who love you will still make painful mistakes. Forgiveness is powerful, but healthy boundaries are just as important, because helping someone should never mean sacrificing your own future. And that's the tiny detail my family almost forgot.